Right, well, welcome, my friends, to the show that never ends, and we're back, and we're at Wembley twice, and where are you next in 2 weeks' time? Liverpool?
Paris.
Okay, so at least we're going to Wembley, not horrible Paris. We've got a few things to discuss. One, what are Wickham's chances? Are we really the underdogs, or have we overplayed that one a bit? And also one or two complaints from Sunderland fans about what Mr. Wickham owner had to say on our website. I think they're making a meal out of nothing. I don't know what the food is like in Sunderland. Maybe they're desperate. Also do need to mention the extra that I've been desperate to tell you all about, and that is, can we measure the value of a goal? And I've got some charts and different interesting pieces to have a fun look at that, because obviously you can't do the perfect job on this, but you can have a little look, and it's pretty entertaining. And I've done the same with Wickham. I actually sorted Wickham's out to have a look at which goals Wickham have scored that had the highest value. So that's something worth listening to. So don't run away after 7 minutes, which seems to be the average.
That'll keep them going.
Yeah, I think so. If you're really interested, then hang around. The other thing, music in the background, a very oldie, a Peter Gabriel. This is his fourth album, and this has got what I consider to be his better songs, not that bloody, what's it called that they play? Oh, Sledgehammer. Oh, not again.
Bog off. It's the only decent song he's ever produced.
Can I just say, Peter Gabriel did write good music as well. All right. Now, moving on then, Kieran. Let's hit Saturday.
I'm surprised you haven't welcomed me back yet, to be honest.
Sorry?
I'm surprised you haven't welcomed me back yet. I've been off for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Well,
people have forgotten who I am.
We've got, yeah. Who are you?
Phil Foden, by the look.
Phil Foden, yeah. We got Phil. They scraped it, didn't they? Point. That'd be enough, though, wouldn't it?
Stevie to win the title for Liverpool. Love to see it. Yeah.
Stevie could do it for Liverpool. Will that make a change, or is he going to slip up? Ho, ho, ho.
Go on, Mike.
Okay, first things first then. Wickham's chances at Wembley on Saturday. How much chance do we have, really? And how much bigger are Sunderland than Wickham? How many fans they got going?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I've got like 40,000 so far or something.
They got 40,000, have they?
I could be wrong, but I saw someone said that there's 60,000 currently going. And considering we've only just got 20, I guess that means they've got 40.
Right. Okay. So, I saw something saying that we got 16. So, I presume they might sell a couple of tickets on, tomorrow, Monday. How are you getting there?
Train.
We're going by train along with the other 15,998. So there might be a bit of a queue. I did see just an interesting little story. One Sunderland fan who couldn't get his ticket for the train, so he's decided he's flying from Sunderland to Mallorca early morning, going to spend a couple of hours on the beach and then fly to London for the cost of £23. So he's going to be on the beach having a drink before coming to Wembley. And actually, his fare was about the same as ours, I think. Okay. Chances are we playing the underdog a little bit much? Because are we really the underdog? We've been in that division for in fact, less less than Sunderland. We've only been in there once for 1 year, haven't we? We've only been in this division for 1 year. We were higher than Sunderland the year before. So aren't they the underdogs?
No.
Why?
Come on. In terms of, I mean, for one, their league position was much better than us. In terms of the size of the club and how much they spend money on, we're just always likely to be underdogs. It's a similar story to if you compare anyone to Man City, they're the League One equivalent in terms of just like how much they spend on their team and how much they spend on their stadium and all that sort of thing. But they're a big club. Doesn't mean their team's better, but in the sense of who they are bigger.
Are they better than us?
Probably. Obviously, I wasn't there when we drew 3-3 against them, but it seemed as though we got a little bit lucky and we got overran a little bit. And then when we played them at theirs, we lost, I think, 3 or 4-1, didn't we? But that's only head to head. I mean, in terms of points, it wasn't a huge difference. I think we're slight. It's almost like calling Chelsea yesterday underdogs. They're still a flipping good team, but they were slight underdogs, and I think Wickham in this case are slight underdogs.
I think. I was wondering, do you think the size of Wembley football pitch is going to make a difference? Because it's a big pitch, isn't it?
I'm trying to think of that. I think that probably does that hinder us. I think it probably would do. Just because if we wanted to keep it tight and keep everyone in the same space in the defence, then that's quite difficult to do considering how wide the pitch is. So it probably works in their favour because there is obviously a bit more space for them to get in behind. So it's not a helpful thing, I don't think. But then we've won there before against a very expansive team in Oxford, so who's to say that can't happen again?
Do you think Wickham have the upper hand because we won just a couple of years ago and because of the age of our team?
It definitely has an impact of some sort. It's difficult because I don't like the team has changed quite a decent amount. Like McCleary wasn't there, Horgan, Hanlon, Tafazoli, Vokes. Like, a lot of our so-called experienced players weren't there 2 years ago. But I think it's such a different kind of final because of fans being there. And the players I mentioned, McCleary and Vokes, they've played in games that mean a horrendous amount more than this one. And so they're going to be very important in terms of keeping everyone level-headed and all that sort of thing.
I think the manager as well.
Yeah. But who's their manager again? Alex Neil. He's. I don't think he wouldn't have been to many finals, would he? In general, they've won something recently though at Wembley, haven't they? Sunderland's. Am I wrong? Didn't they win like the lower league cup kind of thing? Yeah,
division.
I can't remember if he was the man who was in charge at that point, but again, I still think fans make a huge flipping difference. I believe, because if you're an expansive team like Sunderland will be against us, having fans there is very, very helpful compared to when we played Oxford. Not having fans there because they have to try and create their own motivation when they're creating chances and stuff. And I think that's very different.
I mean, Sunderland, let's be frank about this, they're going to have twice as many and they're going to be louder.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Whereas, yeah.
I mean, and also remember it's Sunderland and their fans are louder, aren't they?
They're flipping passionate, aren't they?
I mean, I saw on a couple of things on pods or whatever of Sunderland fans. They were criticising Wickham's owner for making comments. I don't know whether you saw any of that. He did a write up and he made comments about Wickham being the underdogs and Sunderland and being able to play football, and Sunderland being a Netflix team.
I think Wickham fans made a couple of. They weren't particularly happy about that either.
I think they misread it though. I think all he was saying was Sunderland are big, to the point that they even make a TV program about them. Wickham are small. We need as many fans as possible because Sunderland will be packed.
Yeah,
and he was actually patting them on the back. Actually, wasn't he? He was suggesting they're big, and we need to try and get as many there as possible. And so I don't think it was criticism in any way. I just think he needed an editor.
Yeah, he didn't say it particularly fantastically.
He said it in an American
yeah.
bland statement that was misread. And I did actually comment on one or two people's site and try to explain that. And because the guy I don't think would criticise, and he probably knows nothing about Sunderland, let's be honest.
No.
What we do know about Sunderland is their fans deserve championship football. I would go as far as to say that. Not sure on the owners of Sunderland, but I would say I think it's fair enough that Sunderland, if they win, their fans deserve it. Do Wickham deserve it?
As a team, I mean, you said all season, if we go up, you think our team is not good enough to stay up. That's not to say that can't change in the summer kind of thing.
I don't think Sunderland are either.
No, but Championship
do they
is very
have the money
different.
to?
They have a better chance of staying in that division more than we do. In terms of if we deserve it in terms of the stature of football club, then no. We deserve to be in probably League Two, probably. And so I think people have got to realise again before they jump to conclusions, maybe about Ainsworth, maybe about the club in general. We shouldn't be here. We really shouldn't be.
We're in heaven, aren't we?
We should be fighting to stay in the division as opposed to get out of it.
The way I think of it is that Wickham's season, the dream was to get into the playoffs. That's what the top thing was. Get into the playoffs. I think to get into the final is a bonus, and to get into the championship is a mega bonus. I think for Sunderland to win the final is what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's not a dream. That's not a bonus. That's what they're here to do. They will fail if they don't go up. Wickham won't fail if we don't.
Hence,
and is
again,
that a
why
bonus?
we've got.
Is that a bonus?
Arguably, I suppose it does put a bit more pressure on them, doesn't it? But again, I think we don't, unless Farino plays at centre back, we don't have any young players in our team, and so even if we did have pressure on us, I don't think that'd be the thing that would phase them particularly. I'm the player that keeps popping into my head in that respect is Scowen, because he's just not these sort of situations just aren't going to affect him whatsoever. He's still going to take people out and 2-foot people, isn't he? He wouldn't get sent off, kind of. That's probably the point I'm trying to say. But yeah,
how are we going to score first, Kieran?
This is probably going to be our problem,
because this is what we have to do. We have to score first, and then build build the backup as a wall. That's a choice, isn't it? Well, not choice. That's what we have to do. Score first and then build a wall in front of our goal.
I think, yeah. I mean, the problem is potentially the longer it stays 0-0, the less chance we probably have. Because they're just gonna we'll gradually drop deeper, I'd imagine, try and play on the counter, and then they're just gonna pound us with literally everything they have to try and get it done before penalties. Because I'd imagine that plan A is to win 1-0, plan B is to win on penalties. We'll try and keep it up because, I mean, again, experience, we've got players who will score penalties.
Sorry, bloody people, they don't go away, do they? What was I going to say? At what point in the game do you start going for 0-0? 60 minutes?
70.
Half time?
No. 60s are slightly too early. You can't hold on for that long.
Half an hour?
70, 75. Because I have this thing that teams don't score in extra time. Very rarely do they score in extra time. Like yesterday, in the FA Cup final, nothing happened in the extra time. A lot of the extra times I've watched, not a lot has happened. It's not to say that it wouldn't in this one, but it just seems as though once you get to 90, both teams go and play for penalties.
Let me just warn you about that 90, and that is we're taking a look at numbers on how many goals Sunderland have scored, winners, in the last seconds, in the 90 plus minutes. They are the team that do it. They have done it in double figures this year.
So,
well, that worries me.
I don't think that would. I don't think that would affect.
When we're all cheering, thinking we're getting there, they're going to nip up the end and stop.
Yeah, but that's not your. That doesn't affect your game plan. You're still going to try and prevent that from happening. If you're at 0-0 at that stage, you're not going to be like, oh crap, they always score now. We're stuffed.
Okay, then predict what you think the score is going to be. Then you're allowed to go. No, let's pretend you're a Sunderland fan, and then we'll pretend you're a Wickham fan. Well, not pretend, but so if you're a Sunderland fan, what do you think the score is?
If I'm a Sunderland fan, I think it'll be 2-0 if you're a Sunderland fan, 2-1 if you're a Wickham fan, to Wickham, obviously.
Yeah, so you're saying Sunderland 2, Wickham 0 if you're a Sunderland fan, and 2-1 to Wickham if you're a Wickham fan.
They might get once they get 1, they'll assume they'll get 2. If whilst we're trying to go for our goal, and then, but from a Wickham perspective, we win 2-1 quite a lot in these sort of big games. So.
Well, that's interesting because I was going, if I was a Sunderland fan, I'd be wanting 3-0. And if I was a Wickham fan, I'm going for 1-1, we win on penalties.
Let's hope not, innit?
Yeah, let's hope not.
Can't be
asked for nerve-wracking enough with Liverpool yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more to say on next week?
Don't bottle it, Gareth, please.
Don't bottle it, Gareth, please.
Why? What would you tell him?
You can have that tattooed on your arse, are you? Okay. What would I tell him? I think he's got enough experience. He doesn't. He's rarely done things. Of course, he does some things. I don't. We know the team, don't we? There's no point even sitting down working the team out.
No.
We know what the team is. So there's no point even discussing that. And that must be a real plus, mustn't it? He hasn't got to sit down and work it out.
No.
He's got his decision is how far forward we go, because their striker is quick. He's that tall, lanky lad, isn't he? And he's
not that quick.
And he's scored lots.
What, you mean Stewart?
Yeah, need to take him out.
He's not horrendously quick.
Need to take him out. Therefore, Tafazoli needs to do some body work on him without getting sent off.
I'm sure he can manage.
I think he's done it often enough this year.
Yeah.
Let's really upset those Sunderland fans. Get them frustrated. Nice. That's the answer. Get them frustrated. Get them booing their own team. Yeah. Okay. Right. Now, we're moving on. And before we do the goal thing, just as quick questions. I want quick answers. Okay. You ready?
Give it a go.
5 questions.
Yeah.
Favourite team in the Premier League to watch?
Liverpool.
No, you're not allowed to say Liverpool or anything to do with Liverpool.
Aston Villa. Oh, is that still Liverpool?
No, not really. I'll let you have that if you think they are entertaining.
They are actually entertaining, yeah.
Okay. Biggest surprise of the year, players or teams? What's
this season?
You? Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Man City not getting to the final of the Champions League.
Okay.
Or Everton being so crap in the league as well.
Okay. And biggest disappointment, players or teams?
I mean, not that I particularly care that they've been disappointed, but Everton have been awful. Biggest Grealish for Man City, because I wanted him to be really good, but not for Man City, and he hasn't been very good for Man City, unfortunately.
Okay, best dressed manager.
Best dressed. Well, try to think of anyone who
on dress. I mean, doesn't have to be. I mean, you see, I'd say Gerrard because he looks a right plonker. Gives me a laugh
coat?
In that ridiculous coat that he wears from the second-hand shop in Birmingham. Yeah.
He does what he wants, though, Stevie. Pep wears a stupid Man City jumper. Tuchel wears a puffer. Actually, Klopp wears a puffer.
And Tuchel also wears that stupid cap.
So does Klopp. It's all the German managers just wear puffers and caps, don't they?
Yeah. I'm
trying to think of like a manager who wears something obscure. I was just Hasenhüttl for Southampton wears a puffer and a cap as well, and he's German.
Yeah, obviously you can spot a German.
Yeah.
Okay. Could Watford and Norwich have done more?
Yes, they could have signed some actual decent players. They just lingered and waited to go down. They knew they were going to go down, both teams. They didn't give any indication that they were actually going to do anything decent. Okay,
there are your 5 questions. Now we just quickly mention managers because I haven't mentioned that for something like about 5 weeks. Do you realise that? I haven't mentioned. Now there's been a few goals since last time. There's been 15 managers leave since the last time I mentioned it. That makes it a total of 54 out of 92. Not a lot left. I'll quickly read these out. Paul Tisdale from...
The fact that it's more than half is ridiculous.
Paul Tisdale, Stevenage. We mentioned Buddy Boy from Burnley. Mark Cooper Barrow. That's interesting because I mentioned them twice, just as I do another team. Yeah, Mark Cooper Barrow, Mark Robinson Wimbledon, David Artell from Crewe, Poya Asbia from Barnsley. I got that completely wrong. Michael Appleton from Lincoln, Johnny Jackson Charlton, Stephen Craney Fleetwood, Graham Lee Hartlepool, John Yems Crawley, Mark Bowen Wimbledon again, Mark Warburton from QPR, Rob Edwards Forrest Green. He left. He actually went and got a different job. Forrest Green got promoted and he said, thanks guys, I'm off. They weren't happy. Did you listen or see anything that was written by Forrest Green? It was something like, thank you for abandoning us. We really appreciate all that you haven't yet done for us. And it was that sort of stuff. It was not polite. He'll never get a job back there. Tony Mowbray from Blackburn. That is shocking. That is shocking. He's been there 5 years and all he's done is take them up, 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 up. They're in their best position they've been at since he joined. They're on the edge of the playoffs. Next year was his year and they didn't even tell him. He found out. And nice, they hadn't even had a conversation. They told the radio and that's who told him. Thought that was shocking. Running out of time.
Maybe Zoom have updated their like terms of service and stuff. Okay. Maybe you have to do another one.
We will. We'll save this one and then we'll do the next one. Okay. And Phil Brown from Barrow. Barrow again, another Barrow. So that's two Barrows in the 15. Okay. How to measure how much a goal is worth. I've been wanting to do this for weeks. Therefore, the detail I've actually got here is a few weeks behind, but that's no big deal. There are a number of ways I think you should be able to measure a goal. For instance, the problem is if Manchester City are forever winning 4-0, if it's Jesus who always scores the fourth but never the first, does his goal count? Or does it not count because it makes bugger all difference? Okay, and this is what I wanted to look at, because it's all well and fine Kane picking up the golden boot every year, or whoever, Salah or whoever, but if there's another player that's only scored half the amount of goals, but they were the goals that gave their team all the points, isn't that a bit unfair? Now, they got a title for this in America in their type of sports like basketball and all that sort of stuff, all their sort of high scoring sports. And they call it crunch time. And these are clutch players, the players that make a difference. The player that comes to mind would be Origi for Liverpool, where his goals doesn't score many, he doesn't have much time on the pitch, but he will come on and change the outcome of the game. But he will never go and get a golden boot, or he won't score the most for Liverpool. He'd probably come fifth. But his goals counted, and they're the ones people are going to remember. Now, I thought there must be a way of looking at this. Excuse me while I try not to cough. Okay. There's a number of ways of looking at this, and we're going to look at number one. Let me just go and say, so I know when I'm putting these things up, let's go for number one. Sheet number one. Okay. As you can see, these players, first of all, I've picked players that have only scored 30 goals or more, and it's from the last 5 years.
I love how you just said the you picked players
Well,
as if you made this graph.
I didn't make this one. Yeah, well, whoever. Yeah, I've nicked it as most of the things that I do are nicked. Now, these are game state changing goals. Okay, percentage of. So, for instance, Richarlison has scored 45 goals there at the top, but out of the 45, 37 of his 45 goals changed the state of the game. So they weren't goals that turned it from 2-0 down to 2-1 down. These are goals that either brought his team into a state of being at a draw or took it from a draw to being the team in front. Now, these aren't based on the final scores. These are based on game-changing states. Okay? Now, if you look down that list, what does that tell you? Who's missing for a start?
Kane, Aguero, Salah, Mane.
All the top goal scoring
Ronaldo.
scorers.
Yeah.
But what you still do have is all goal scorers, but the next stage down, which I think is interesting because let's be honest, these are lower scoring players, aren't they? But what do you think is interesting? It's also the teams they play for, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's not many. Well, there's no Man City, no Liverpool, no Chelsea. No Chelsea.
Well, you got
couple of
Giroud
United
down there, but that was
but he
that's
didn't play
Arsenal
that
as well,
much.
was it?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of Uniteds and a couple of Arsenal, aren't there? I see Aubameyang's got quite a few.
Yeah, I'm Benteke, third.
But it's mainly your Wolves, Everton, Crystal Palace kind of teams, isn't it?
So when these players score, it changes the game. But you have to also say if Burnley score, it usually changes the game.
Yeah, this is the thing. Most of the goals that they will score will change the state of games, won't they?
So this is percent of their goals. So maybe they've scored some other players have scored more game state changing goals, but it's a lower percentage. But these players, so Richarlison, you should never take him off the pitch, is what this is saying. But would you take Benteke off the pitch? Well, I wouldn't have put him on in the first place. But no, it's Jota's on there, but obviously that was for Wolves, really. So is this a fair way of deciding whether their goals counted or not? Do you think this is a good way of...
I suppose the other thing you could argue as to whether something's important is like if your team is 3-1 up, but if your team's 2-1 up, you score a goal, that doesn't count as a game state changing goal, does it? And then you might win only 3-2 in the end. But like in the situation of the game, yes, I guess so.
The problem I think with this list is if your goal is scored in the first minute in a game-changing goal state,
yeah,
is it equal to a goal that is scored that wins the game in the 91st minute. That's the first thing I'd argue, that if your goal you score in the first 30 seconds, you've then got a long time to hang on. And that goal is probably not worth the same amount as the one that wins the game in the 91st minute. The second problem is what if your goals put you in front, but you concede 2? Whose fault is that? Is it yours? Well, no, not really. You got bad defence. So we come on to number 2. Number 2. Okay, these are in the last 10 years. Okay, and those players that have scored more than 50. Now this separates the goals that they've scored by putting it in. Let me get my head around this. It separates the percentage with the time elapsed within the game. So, for instance, you would get 0.5% if you score an equaliser at half time. You would get 1%, you would get a full 1% if it was scored at the end of the game, because you've got to hang on for 45 minutes. So do you see what I've done here, or they have done here? Yeah. Now we get our big goal scorers. So if you put your team ahead at half time, it counts as 1.5. And if you put them ahead at the end of the game, it counts as 3. So these are how much they're worth and when you score them. Now, if you look at how many goals Kane has scored and how many, which ones are more vital, and then you go down the list and you have a look. Sterling has scored 106 goals, which haven't counted for so many. No, but Mata has scored half the amount of goals, but when he scores, they count. Would you say that was a fair assessment?
I mean, Mata's goals were very back in the day. But I mean, from remembrance, Sterling normally scores. I mean, it might be slightly unfair to Man City in general because all their games they win 5-0, or did do for a very long time. And Sterling would quite often score hat-tricks or a couple in those sort of games. So, whereas your Kane and your Vardy's up there, they're a bit tighter, aren't they, the games normally? So,
do you notice that Mane is higher than Salah?
I knew you'd bring that up, and I was just about to say only just.
And also, Benteke is still up there. Somebody find him quick.
Well, Benteke for Aston Villa just scored all their goals one season, didn't he? Well, I mean, that's what's carried them for years. So, yeah, there you go.
There's a problem with this one as well, and that is those that score more should change more games.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with this chart. So, but I think that's interesting. Now we go on to chart number 3. This is where I've got to really try and pay attention. So to sort that out, so rather than going on goals scored, we're going to look at...
Well, no, it's just divided the numbers by how many goals they've scored.
Yeah, percent. Now we're doing the...
It's not a percent. It's just equated a number to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see Defoe is up there. And interesting because he got all of those points. The reason he's sat top of the tree is because he scored all his goals that made a difference.
Mm.
For Sunderland, funnily enough, when they were trying to stay up, he kept them up on his own. So he scored all the goals in the team. So his goals counted. Every goal made a big difference, even though he didn't score as many goals as some. And again, these are all sort of, I mean, I know it's Rashford's on there, which is a bit of a strange one because I don't actually see him as a goal scorer anymore, really.
This is since 2010, 2011, isn't it?
Yes, since. Yeah. I told you we'd work our way through this pretty quick, didn't I? Because I want to get to Wickham's, that's why. Right, moving on. Now we come to number 4. Now, this is where I think this is where it gets interesting in my book. Now, these players have scored 50 goals plus in the Premier League for the last 10 years. And you can see their goal scoring rate on the right. Now, these are actual point value. Therefore, if they were 3-0 up in the first 10 minutes and lost 4-3, then they would get no points. If they went 3-0 up in the first 10 minutes and won 3-0, only their third goal would count and you would get 3 points. Okay? So these are the actual point values. And again, Kane has won his team more points. Obviously, he's scored more goals. So again, we come into that sort of field. And again, Benteke is there. I mean, you can't get rid of the bloke. He just don't bugger off, does he?
It's too good, mate.
Yeah, and Mane coming in third. Van Persie, Vardy. I'd want to mention Vardy because I think they're in trouble, Leicester, without him. He's appeared on a couple of these, and without him, they have nobody else. Whereas Liverpool do, and United should. I mean, Mata again is down there. What's Mata doing on there?
He used to be very good, didn't he?
But scoring all the goals.
Well, Danny Welbeck is on there, I see, as well.
Lukaku,
Andy Carroll.
He needs to get back up on there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And again, Defoe. So, and Welbeck. I mean, if you start crossing, this is the last 10 years. Who do you think, if we in 5 years' time, who will be putting themselves up on this chart, you think? Actually, the actual point value will be picking up the actual point value.
If Kane stays at Tottenham, then it will still be him. It won't be any Man City players because Haaland will just score all the goals for when it's 4-0 and 5-0, won't he? There could be an Arsenal player on there at some point if they buy a striker. It's those sort of players that aren't in the
you noticed how
right
Richarlison's disappeared.
Yeah,
and do you know why?
They don't win any points.
Exactly, he gets the goal that puts them in front, and then they lose 2-1.
Yeah.
So he changes the game all the time. He keeps changing the game in favour of, but they don't win or take the points away. That's what this is actually saying. So they're not doing him any favours. They've got the striker to win the points, but they don't have the defence to hang on. That's what this is telling you. Next one. Now, this one is interesting, he says. Number 5.
Well, it's the last graph divided by the number of goals.
Yeah. So this is the same as the previous one, sort of, except this is the sort of percentage thingy, the actual, yeah. So Ericsson at the top. What's Ericsson doing at the top?
Who knows, mate?
What would you like? Have you got anything to say about this one?
I mean, the graph before was all of the top strikers, wasn't it? On this one, it's all of the middle of the roads kind of strikers. You got Ericsson, Hernandez, Welbeck, and Carroll up the top there. The first big name I really see is Costa, and then you got Son on there as well. Mane.
So basically, each of these players, their goals, on average, value more points than anybody else's. So every time Ericsson scores a goal, they bring in more points. What's going on there? Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So every time he scores a goal, they are worth more than other people's. This is what this is saying. I wonder, will that was obviously for Tottenham. Will this apply with who he's with now?
Maybe.
And last but not least, I just thought this was. Do you think this was interesting? Do you think this is worth putting up?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 6. This is Wickham's. Okay. Now, this is actual points that each goal has brought. Okay. So, I worked out again that if Vokes scored the goal against and it brought us 1 point because we drew 1-1, he'd get a point. But if he scored 2 and we won 2-1, he would get 3 points. He wouldn't get 4. Okay. So scoring 6-0 and he scored a hat trick, he wouldn't get point. He'd only get points for the first goal that got us the 3 points. And this is where we come to with this. Because if you notice, Horgan has scored 1, but it was worth nothing.
Yeah.
Because we'd already won the game. Scowen scored 1, but it was pointless. It didn't win us the game. And I thought that was quite interesting how this works out. Because I tell you, the one that surprised me was Mehmeti's, that he scored 7 goals, but he only actually picked up 3 points.
Well, Hanlon's not much better either, is he? He's only on 4.
Yeah. So all these players that are scoring goals, Brandon and Anis, Hanlon and Mehmeti, the two of them have scored 14 goals, almost the same as Vokes. But Vokes has picked up 3 times the amount of points for almost the same amount of goals. Because they're only scoring after McCleary or Vokes have changed the game. They're scoring after one of those two. I mean, it could be when they're coming on. They could be coming on as subs when the game's already won and getting making it 3-1. But look at how many points Vokes and McCleary have picked up. So it's all well and fine as saying lots of them score goals.
The ones that really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, Akinfenwa was the one for me. He scored 6, but it's only worth 1 point.
Yeah.
I think that was a draw recently, wasn't it?
Yeah. Have I got him on there?
Yeah, he's 5th.
Oh, yes. So he's scoring goals but not making any difference. So the question is, who got us into the playoffs with goals? Vokes and McCleary. Simple as that. Tafazolis aren't bad either, are they? And remember, this was about 3 weeks ago. He's scored a couple since.
Yeah,
well.
Abiya's got a few points in there. But then you got McCarthy down the bottom. He only scored one, but it was worth 3. So
yeah. Well, it's like Grimmer jumping up and down about all his great goals out of his 2, but they've made absolutely no difference whatsoever. Interesting. And the question that you have to ask is, are certain players better at scoring under pressure than others?
I think that's very difficult to tell. Sort of, but I'm not sure this is how you work it out. This is very situational.
Well, there we go. Whether you think we've answered the question, can you work out how much a goal is worth? I would say, yeah, sort of. But I'd also say, well, not really. Because sometimes, let's be honest, when somebody sticks in that third goal in a 3-1, it takes all the pressure away from even when you were hanging on to a 2-1. That third goal actually saves you points as well. So I don't think there's a perfect way of doing it. But I think looking at that, you can read a few things in there and a few things out.
Good idea, can't you?
It gives you a clue. I certainly think the Wickham one looks interesting and tells you that both Vokes and McCleary are priceless. And if you're expecting a player to score the first goal to make a difference at Wembley, well, it's got to be, we need McCleary playing well and Vokes playing well, don't we? Indeed. Okay, we'll finish there and we'll move on to the next subject, which is, just one moment, I'll keep losing this. There we go. Let's move on. Hey, talk about the FA Cup final, Kieran. You got 9 minutes at most.
9 minutes, blimey. It was always going to be 0-0 again, I think. Liverpool and Chelsea just seem to play out a lot of draws these days, as do all the top teams, actually.
Chelsea haven't beaten Liverpool in the last 4 games.
No, it might even be more than 4, to be fair. We haven't lost them in a while. But Liverpool were decent. If there were different people in different spots, then we probably would have won the game in normal time. Jota had a very good chance. Diaz had a lot, even though he did create them all by himself, essentially. Robertson at the post. But then I think Chelsea's chances were probably a bit more clean cut. And if they'd had the right people in the right places, and maybe if Lukaku would actually bother to turn up this season, then he might have done a bit more than what he did do.
There's your biggest disappointment.
Yeah, true.
Were we not? Were we surprised? I suppose not really.
No, but there was like a lot of the chances, like he should be there instead of like, I don't know, Pulisic or Mount coming in from deep to get the chance instead. Like it should be him. And then, yeah, Salah going off injured wasn't ideal, but apparently it's just like a precautionary thing.
I think he's saving himself.
Yeah,
it would be nice if he turned up to the Champions League final.
Yeah,
he ain't been around for the last few months.
No, to be honest, it has been Diaz and Mane in recent times who has been carrying our front three, because Jota has scored a few but hasn't performed fantastically, and Firmino scored quite a few recently, but just hasn't been preferred when playing. Diaz was ridiculous. Diaz will be like our main man at some point in the future. Really liked him. Thiago's very good. Didn't realise that Van Dijk has come off in extra time until like 10 minutes in. which
He'll be all right.
Gave me a heart attack. Yeah, he's fine, I believe. And then the penalties, there's a couple that Mendy could have saved at Liverpool's. I think Milner's and Firmino's got a hand to. Menzi's Alisson's save on Mount was very good, and yeah.
Well, we've said it. I think I said it before, and that is Liverpool are the only team that actually use the data analysts stuff for taking penalties. In that they put their little hats on with all the wires, and they check. And it's not about taking a perfect penalty; it's about how calm they are as they walk up and walk back, and they've already decided where everything's going. The goalkeeper, and they make sure the goalkeeper can't annoy them. And it's state of mind. Liverpool play this game and train the players in a state of mind to take the penalty, and that's half the problem with so many players. They walk up, and I don't know what everybody else is like at home, but we sit and say, he's going to miss. You can see that. You couldn't see it. I mean, look at that Liverpool guy, the guy that took the one that won it. He shouldn't have been so relaxed, should he? I mean, he's never scored for Liverpool. No, he's playing at an FA Cup final. He's young, and he's just about to take the penalty that could win them the cup. I mean...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Our last 4 penalty shootouts, we scored 6 out of 7 yesterday. We scored 11 out of 11 against Chelsea. Prior to that, we scored 5 out of 5 against Arsenal, and then 5 out of 5 against Chelsea again. Like, whenever it goes to penalty shootout, I am not nervous at all.
And nor are your players. I thought Mane's facial expression, even when he missed and he walked back, there was a little smile across his face. It wasn't one of, it wasn't. He was relaxed about it. Yeah. He was relaxed about not scoring.
I mean, if you're looking deep into it, maybe because Mendy is also Senegalese, and maybe he knew something about where Mane normally goes. I mean, Mane does normally go to the keeper's right-hand side, and he smashed it in that corner. Evidently, he's probably told Mendy that before and decides to try and put it in the other corner. I imagine that's probably
can't play games, can you? And I don't know about you, but I thought Mount a miss.
I did because I thought he would have been much earlier. Because he was that late, because he's like one of the better strikers of the ball for Chelsea, and one of the better shooters. I would have thought he would be one of the first 5. The fact he was not one of the first 5 meant he was nervous.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that he should be 7th in the list. Similarly for Liverpool, like Henderson, I noticed hadn't come up, and he wasn't in the first 7, so evidently he didn't fancy it either.
I felt sorry for Chelsea. I did. I felt sorry for Chelsea.
They could easily have won it.
Yeah.
On a different day.
I mean, the thing is that what you now remember is Liverpool won on penalties, Liverpool won the League Cup on penalties, but you never say Liverpool drew with Chelsea and won on penalties. If you're the team that don't win, you're the team forgotten. And yet you did. What did you do? But are penalties a part of football? And so it's not like if you separate penalties from a football match and you win on penalties and didn't win the football match, does that matter? Aren't the penalties a part of that game? And so Liverpool are the winners.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and if you always say, well, it's not fair because it boils down to one person, but doesn't the football match usually boil down to one mistake by one person?
It's just because this is just a high pressurized moment in which literally the whole crowd is watching you and what you do. And that one moment could impact the outcome of the game. That's what it's about, isn't it? As opposed to during the game where if you make a mistake, then potentially you can reciprocate. But
so, were you happy?
I was quite happy, yeah. But in saying that, there's bigger fish to fry. I guess that's the phrase.
Fish fry.
Winning the FA Cup and League Cup, fantastic. But I wouldn't mind the other two. In the broad scheme of things, that's probably crap and selfish to say.
City drew, so you cocked that one up. What a chance against Tottenham!
We were never going to beat Spurs. We lost the league against Brentford and Brighton when we drew against them, not Spurs.
Okay, well, we're going to finish here, and then me and Kieran will come back and do the bit in between, and I'll put it all together like a jigsaw puzzle. And so, got anything else to say, Kieran? Nope. And so, we'll be back, Kieran, won't we? Happy or sad? Let's hope happy. We'll see you next week. Happy. Say goodbye, Kieran.
Bye-bye.
And I'll say goodbye.